Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the empty space before him. The stars looked the same as always, but something felt wrong. He had been flying through this part of space for 3 months now, and he had not seen a single other ship. No traders, no explorers, no messages from the colonies that used to be here. Nothing. "Captain," said Ryan Brooks from his position at the communication station, "I'm still getting nothing on any channels. It's like this whole sector just went quiet." Jake rubbed his tired eyes. The UES Horizon was a good ship, built for long trips into unknown space. His crew was small, but skilled. Lisa Carter ran the engines better than anyone he had ever worked with. Amanda Stone could handle any security problem that came their way. Ryan Brooks could pick up signals from halfway across the galaxy when he put his mind to it. But even the best crew could not find people who were not there. "How long has it been since we heard from Kepler Station?" Jake asked. 6 months, sir," Ryan replied, without looking up from his screens. Their last message was a routine supply request, then nothing. Lisa Carter looked up from her engineering station. "Sir, we're getting close to the station now. Maybe we should take a look. If something happened to them, we need to know what it was." Jake thought about this. Fleet Command had told all ships to avoid this area, but they had not said why. The orders were simple: stay away, report anything unusual, do not investigate alone. But Jake had never been good at following orders when people might be in trouble. "Amanda, what's our weapons status?" he asked his security chief. Amanda Stone checked her screens. "All systems working, sir, but if something was strong enough to take out an entire research station, I'm not sure what we could do about it." Jake walked to the front of the bridge and looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there was Kepler Station. It had been home to 50 scientists and support staff. They were good people, smart people. They had been studying ways to make faster communication across space. Their work could have changed everything for humanity. "Sir," Ryan said suddenly, "I'm picking up something." Everyone turned to look at him. Ryan was staring at his screen, with a confused look on his face. "What is it?" Jake asked. "It's a distress signal, but it's very weak. And sir, it's coming from Kepler Station." Jake felt his heart speed up. "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir, but there's something strange about it. The frequency is wrong. It doesn't match any of our standard emergency channels." Lisa walked over to look at Ryan's screen. "That's not a human frequency," she said. "I've never seen anything like it." Amanda stood up from her station. "Sir, this could be a trap. Maybe whatever happened to the station is trying to lure other ships in." Jake knew she was right to be careful. But if there were survivors on that station, they needed help. And if there was something dangerous out there, Fleet Command needed to know about it. "Ryan, can you clean up the signal? I want to hear what it's saying." Ryan worked at his controls for several minutes. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Finally, he looked up. "Sir, I can make it clearer, but I don't think it's in any language I know. It doesn't sound human at all." Jake made his decision. "Set course for Kepler Station. Full scan as we approach. I want to know everything about that place before we get too close." "Sir," Amanda said, "I really think we should call for backup." "First, we will," Jake said. "But right now, we might be the only chance those people have." The horizon turned toward Kepler Station. As they got closer, their sensors began to pick up more details. The station was still there, but something was wrong with it. Parts of the outer hull looked damaged, but not from weapons Jake recognized. "Lisa, what do you make of those hull breaches?" he asked. Lisa studied the readings. "Sir, it looks like something cut through the metal, but I can't tell what. The edges are too clean for an explosion, but too rough for a cutting tool." "Life signs?" Jake asked. Ryan checked his instruments. "I'm reading some, sir, but they're weak. And sir, they don't look quite right." "What do you mean?" "The patterns are close to human, but there are differences. like something changed him. Jake felt a chill run down his back. He had seen a lot of strange things in space, but this was different. The empty sector, the damaged station, the weird signals, and now life signs that were almost but not quite human. Amanda, prep an away team. I want you, Lisa, and Ben Clark ready to go in 30 minutes. Full environmental suits, heavy weapons, and constant communication with the ship. Sir, maybe you should stay on the ship, Amanda said. Not a chance. If my people are going into danger, I'm going with them. As the horizon moved closer to Kepler Station, Jake could see more damage to the structure. It looked like something had attacked it, but the damage was unlike anything he had ever seen. There were no blast marks, no debris floating around the station. Instead, parts of the hull seemed to have been changed somehow, turned into something that was not quite metal anymore. Captain, Ryan said, his voice tense. That distress signal is getting stronger. Can you tell what it's saying yet? No, sir, but Captain, I don't think it's asking for help. I think it's calling for something. Jake looked out at the damaged station floating in the darkness ahead of them. Whatever had happened here, they were about to find out. He just hoped they would live long enough to warn everyone else. Amanda Stone checked her weapon one more time before stepping through the airlock onto Kepler Station. The corridors were dark, except for the light from her helmet. Behind her, Lisa Carter and Ben Clark followed closely, their boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. This is wrong, Amanda whispered into her radio. The air should be gone if the hull was breached, but the atmosphere is still here. Lisa looked at her readings. The atmosphere is here, but it's different. There's something else mixed in with the oxygen. Something I don't recognize. They moved slowly through the first corridor. The walls looked normal at first, but as they went deeper into the station, Amanda began to see patches of something that looked like crystal growing on the metal. The crystal was clear, but had a soft blue light coming from inside it. Captain, are you seeing this? Amanda asked. Jake's voice came through their radios from the ship. I see it. What is that stuff? I don't know, sir. But it's covering more and more of the walls as we go deeper. Ben Clark stopped beside one of the crystal patches and scanned it with his medical equipment. It's not just on the walls. He said it's growing into them, like it's changing the metal into something else. They reached the main research lab where most of the station's crew would have been working. The door was open, and blue light spilled out into the corridor. Amanda raised her weapon and stepped inside. The lab was filled with the crystal stuff. It covered the walls, the ceiling, and most of the equipment. But that was not the worst part. In the center of the room, Amanda could see 3 people sitting at a table. They were not moving. Ben, get over here, she called. Ben moved to the 3 people and scanned them with his medical equipment. They're alive, he said, surprised, but barely. Their life signs are very weak. Lisa walked around the lab, looking at the equipment. Most of it was covered in crystal, but some of the computers were still working. Amanda, look at this, she said, pointing to a screen that was still clear. On the screen was a message, typed in simple words. Don't let it spread. The signal calls. Them. Stop the signal. Captain, we found survivors, Amanda reported. 3 of them, but they're in some kind of sleep state. Can Ben wake them up? Jake asked. Ben was already working on one of the people, a woman with gray hair. He gave her a small injection and waited. After a few minutes, her eyes opened slowly. Dr. Price, Ben asked, reading the name tag on her lab coat. The woman tried to speak, but only a whisper came out. Ben gave her some water from his emergency kit. The communication array, she whispered. We were trying to make it work faster, but we reached something in the dark between the stars. Amanda leaned closer. What did you reach? They call themselves the Shapers. They don't destroy worlds. They change them. Make them part of themselves. Lisa looked around the crystal-covered lab. Is that what this stuff is? Part of them? Dr. Price nodded weakly. It changes everything it touches. The metal, the air, the people. But it keeps our minds alive inside it. All the people who touch it become part of a big mind that connects across space. Ben scanned Dr. Price again. Her body is changing too, he said quietly to Amanda. Whatever this crystal stuff is, it's already starting to change her at a level I can't fix. Doctor, Amanda said, how do we stop it? The signal, Dr. Price whispered. Our communication array is still sending a signal into deep space. It's calling them here. More of them. You have to destroy the array. Amanda looked at Lisa. Can you find the communication array? Lisa checked her tablet. It should be in the next section. But if it's covered in this crystal stuff like everything else, I might not be able to shut it down safely. We have to try, Amanda said. They helped Dr. Price to her feet, but she was too weak to walk far. Ben stayed with her and the other two survivors, while Amanda and Lisa went to find the communication array. The next section of the station was even worse. The crystal covered everything, and the blue light was so bright, they had to dim their helmet lights. The air felt thick, like breathing soup. There, Lisa said, pointing to a large piece of equipment in the center of the room. That's the array. But look at it. The communication array was completely covered in crystal, but it was still working. In fact, it looked like the crystal was making it work better. Lights blinked inside the crystal, and Amanda could hear a low humming sound. Lisa, can you shut it down? Amanda asked. Lisa studied the equipment. I can try, but I'll have to touch the crystal to reach the controls. Don't, Amanda said quickly. Dr. Price said it changes people. But if we don't shut it down, more of these shapers will come. And if they're as powerful as Dr. Price says, they could change entire planets. Amanda thought about this. She looked at the crystal-covered array, still sending its signal into space. Somewhere out there, something was receiving that signal and coming toward them. Captain, she called on her radio. We found the communication array, but there's a problem. Jake's voice came back immediately. What kind of problem? To shut it down, someone will have to touch the crystal stuff. And according to Dr. Price, that will start changing them into one of these shapers. There was silence on the radio for a moment. Then Jake's voice came back, firm and clear. Do not touch that crystal. We'll find another way. But even as he said it, Amanda could see more crystal growing on the walls around them. It was spreading faster now, like their presence was making it grow, and the humming sound from the array was getting louder. Captain, Lisa said into her radio, the crystal is growing faster, and I think the signal is getting stronger too. Get back to the ship, now, Jake ordered, as they ran back through the corridors. Amanda could see the crystal spreading behind them like a slow wave. Whatever the shapers were, they were not done with Kepler Station yet, and somewhere in the dark between the stars, something was listening to the signal and coming their way. Back on the horizon, Jake paced the bridge while his away team got out of their environmental suits. Dr. Price and the other two survivors were in the medical bay, but Ben Clark said there was not much he could do for them. The crystal stuff was already in their blood, changing them slowly from the inside. Captain, Ryan called from his station. I'm getting reports from other ships in nearby sectors. They're finding the same thing we found here. Jake stopped pacing. What do you mean, empty colonies, sir? Strange signals. Ships reporting crew members who came back from investigations acting different. Lisa walked onto the bridge, still pale from what she had seen on the station. Captain, I've been thinking about what Dr. Price said. These shapers don't invade like normal enemies. They change everything they touch into part of themselves. But why? Jake asked. What do they want? I don't think they want anything, sir. I think they're reacting to us. Every time we send ships into deep space, every time we build a new colony, we're sending signals through space. Those signals are reaching them, and they're coming to investigate. Amanda joined them on the bridge. Sir, I think we have a bigger problem. That signal from Kepler Station is still broadcasting, and it's getting stronger. If Dr. Price was right, it's calling more of these shapers here. Jake sat down in his captain's chair and thought hard. Humanity had been spreading across the galaxy for 50 years, building colonies, exploring new worlds, sending signals into space to communicate with each other. But maybe they had been sending those signals to someone else too. "Ryan, get me Admiral Phillips at Fleet Command," Jake ordered. It took several minutes to establish the connection, but finally, Admiral Kate Phillips appeared on the main screen. She looked tired and worried. "Captain Morrison," she said, "I've been reading your reports. Are you certain about what you found?" "Yes, Admiral. These shapers are unlike anything we've faced before. They don't destroy civilizations. They absorb them, keep their minds alive as part of a collective consciousness that spans across space." Admiral Phillips nodded grimly. "We've lost contact with 6 colonies in the past week, and we're getting reports of strange phenomena from across human space." Admiral Lisa spoke up. "I think I know why this is happening now. We've been expanding faster in the past few years, sending more signals, building more colonies. We've reached some kind of limit that got their attention. Like an immune system," Jake said suddenly. "We're spreading through space like an infection, and they're the immune system trying to stop us." Admiral Phillips looked grim. "If that's true, Captain, then we're facing something that has been around for a very long time. Something that has stopped other species before us." Ryan suddenly looked up from his station. "Admiral, Captain, you need to see this. I'm picking up something on long-range sensors." The main screen changed to show a view of deep space. At first, Jake could not see anything unusual. Then Ryan enhanced the image, and Jake felt his heart sink, moving slowly through space. Toward human territory were objects the size of small moons. They were not ships in any way, Jake understood. They looked like they were made entirely of the same crystal material they had found on Kepler Station, glowing with soft blue light. "How many?" Admiral Phillips asked quietly. 12, Admiral. Maybe more. They're still very far away, but they're definitely heading for human space." Lisa studied the readings. At their current speed, they'll reach the outer colonies in about 2 weeks. Admiral Phillips closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, Jake could see she had made a decision. "Captain Morrison, I'm sending you new orders. Return to Earth immediately. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with." "Admiral, what about the people on Kepler Station?" "And Dr. Price said the communication array is still calling these things." "We'll handle the station, Captain. Right now, I need your team back here to help us figure out how to stop something we don't understand." After the communication ended, Jake sat quietly on the bridge. Through the main window, he could see Kepler Station in the distance, still glowing with blue light. The signal was still broadcasting, still calling to the shapers in deep space. "Captain," Amanda said softly, "what if we can't stop them?" Jake thought about the 12 moon-sized objects moving through space toward them. He thought about the colonies that had already gone quiet, the people who were being absorbed into some vast alien consciousness. "Then we better learn how to fight something that turns our own people against us," he said. Lisa looked at her instruments again. "Sir, there's something else. I've been analyzing the crystal samples we collected. The material doesn't just change matter. It stores consciousness, keeps minds alive inside it. Every person these shapers have ever absorbed is still in there somewhere." "Are you saying that people aren't really dead?" Ben asked, joining them from the medical bay. "I'm saying there's something else. Still alive, but part of something bigger." Dr. Price said she could still hear the voices of her colleagues who had been absorbed before her. Jake felt a chill. "How many civilizations do you think they've absorbed over the years?" "Based on the complexity of the crystal structure," Lisa said, "I'd guess thousands, maybe millions. All of their knowledge, all of their experiences, stored in that network." The bridge was quiet As everyone thought about this, somewhere in those crystal constructs moving toward them were the minds of countless beings from across the galaxy, all absorbed into a collective consciousness that had been growing for who knew how long. "Sir," Ryan said, breaking the silence, "I'm getting a priority message from Fleet Command. Admiral Phillips wants all ships to fall back to Earth immediately. She's calling it Operation Sanctuary." Jake knew what that meant. Admiral Phillips was preparing for the worst. She was pulling all human forces back to defend their home world, which meant she thought the outer colonies were already lost. "Set course for Earth," Jake ordered. "Maximum speed." As the horizon turned away from Kepler Station, Jake took one last look at the damaged research facility. The blue light was getting brighter, and he could swear the signal was getting stronger, too. Somewhere in deep space, 12 massive constructs were coming to answer that signal, and humanity had no idea how to stop them. Earth looked different when the horizon arrived. Ships from across human space were gathered around the home world like a protective shell. Jake had never seen so many vessels in one place, but even with all those ships, he knew they would not be enough if the Shapers were as powerful as Dr. Price had said. Admiral Phillips met them at Earth Station 1, the largest space station orbiting the planet. She looked like she had not slept in days, and Jake could see the worry in her eyes. "Captain Morrison," she said as they walked through the station corridors, "we've lost 8 more colonies since you left Kepler Station. The pattern is always the same. First, communications stop. Then, if we send ships to investigate, they find everyone in that same crystal sleep state." They entered a large meeting room where dozens of officers and scientists were working at computer stations. In the center of the room was a large display, showing the positions of all human colonies and the approaching Shaper constructs. "Show him what we've learned," Admiral Phillips said to a scientist standing near the display. Dr. Helen Price, who had somehow made it to Earth ahead of them, stepped forward. She looked much better than she had on Kepler Station, but Jake could still see traces of the crystal changes in her skin. "Captain," she said, "we've been studying the crystal samples your team brought back. We think we understand how the Shapers work." The display changed to show a complex network of lines connecting points across the galaxy. "They operate through a collective consciousness," Dr. Price continued. "Every mind they absorb becomes part of a vast network that can communicate instantly across any distance. They share knowledge, experiences, everything." "But here's the important part," said another scientist, a man named Dr. Kevin Walsh. "The network depends on harmony. All the minds in it have to work together perfectly, or the whole system becomes unstable." Admiral Phillips leaned forward. "Which brings us to our plan." The display changed again, showing technical drawings of modified spaceships. "We're going to overload their network," Admiral Phillips said. "We've built transmitters that can broadcast directly into their collective consciousness. Instead of trying to destroy the constructs with weapons, we're going to attack their minds." Lisa studied the plans. "What kind of signal are you planning to broadcast?" Dr. Price smiled grimly. "Everything that makes us human. Music, art, emotions, chaotic thoughts, individual memories. All the messy, contradictory things that make human consciousness different from other species. You see," Dr. Walsh explained, "every other species the Shapers absorbed had ordered, hierarchical thinking. They fit easily into the collective. But humans think differently. We're chaotic, emotional, unpredictable." Jake began to understand. "You want to give their perfect network a case of mental chaos." "Exactly," Admiral Phillips said. "But there's a problem. To make this work, the transmitters have to be delivered directly into the constructs, and once they make contact with the crystal material, the crews will be absorbed too." The room became quiet. Jake looked around at the faces of the officers and scientists. They all knew what Admiral Phillips was saying. It was a suicide mission. How many ships? Jake asked. 12. One for each construct. We're asking for volunteers. Jake did not hesitate. The Horizon volunteers, Amanda, Lisa, Ryan, and Ben, who had followed him into the meeting, all nodded agreement. Sir, Amanda said, if we're going to do this, we better make sure it works. Dr. Walsh showed them the transmitter device. It was about the size of a large briefcase, filled with complex electronics. Once you activate this inside a construct, it will start broadcasting human consciousness patterns into their network, but you'll have to maintain the transmission manually. The device needs constant human input to work. How long? Lisa asked. As long as possible. The more human thoughts and emotions you can pump into their system, the better chance we have of overloading it. Admiral Phillips looked at Jake and his crew. Captain, I want you to know that this plan might not work. We're betting everything on the idea that human consciousness is too chaotic for their system to handle. Admiral, Jake said, what happens to the people who have already been absorbed? If we break their network, do those minds die? Dr. Price answered, we don't know. They might die, or they might be freed. We just don't know. Jake thought about all the colonies that had gone silent, all the people who were now part of the Shaper Collective. If there was even a chance to free them, it was worth the risk. When do we launch? He asked. In 6 hours. The constructs will reach the outer edge of human space in 12 hours. We need to hit them before they can start converting our remaining colonies. The next few hours passed quickly. Jake and his crew prepared the Horizon for what they knew would be their last mission. They loaded the transmitter device and tested all their systems. Other volunteer crews were doing the same thing on 11 other ships. As they prepared to launch, Jake gathered his crew on the bridge. I want everyone to know, he said, that I'm proud to serve with you. What we're about to do might save humanity, or it might just buy them a little more time. Either way, we're going to face it together. Amanda checked her weapons one last time, even though they would be useless against the constructs. Sir, what exactly are we going to broadcast into their network? Jake smiled. Everything we can think of. Our memories, our dreams, our fears, our hopes. All the messy, wonderful things that make us human. Lisa looked up from her engineering station. The transmitter is ready, Captain. Once we're inside a construct and I activate it, we'll need to keep feeding it human thoughts and emotions for as long as we can. Then let's make sure we give them thoughts worth remembering, Jake said. The 12 volunteer ships launched together, heading toward the approaching Shaper constructs. As they flew through space, Jake looked out at the stars and thought about everything that made him human. His childhood on Earth, his first day in space, the friends he had made, the woman he had loved and lost, the crew who had become his family. Soon, all of those thoughts would be broadcast into an alien network that had existed for millions of years. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to set the galaxy free. The Shaper construct was bigger than anything Jake had ever seen. As the Horizon approached it, the crystal structure filled their entire view. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, glowing with soft blue light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Captain, Ryan said from his station, I'm detecting thousands of life signs inside that thing, maybe millions. Jake felt a chill. All those minds, absorbed into the collective consciousness, waiting inside the crystal structure. People from worlds he had never heard of, species that had existed long before humanity had even learned to make fire. Lisa, is the transmitter ready? Jake asked. Ready, sir? As soon as we make contact with the crystal, I can activate it. The other 11 ships were approaching their own constructs. Jake could see them on his screen, tiny specks against the massive crystal structures. Each crew was about to sacrifice themselves for a plan that might not even work. All ships, this is Captain Morrison, Jake said into his radio. Whatever happens next, remember that we're not just fighting for humanity. We're fighting for every mind that's been trapped in these things for millions of years. The horizon touched the surface of the construct, and immediately Jake felt something change. The ship's hull began to glow with the same blue light as the crystal. Through the walls, he could see crystal material starting to grow over the metal. "Lisa, now!" Jake shouted. Lisa activated the transmitter. Immediately, Jake felt something strange in his mind. It was like hearing voices from very far away, thousands of them, all speaking at once. "The network," Lisa said, her eyes wide. "I can hear it. All those minds, connected together." Jake concentrated on his own thoughts and memories, trying to push them into the transmitter. He thought about his first day as a ship captain, the pride he had felt. He thought about his crew, how they had become like family to him. He thought about Earth, with its blue skies and green forests. "It's working," Ryan said, but his voice sounded distant. "I can feel our thoughts going into their system." Amanda was thinking about her training as a security officer, about the importance of protecting people. But she was also thinking about her childhood, playing games with her sister, laughing until her stomach hurt. Ben was remembering his medical training, but also the first time he had saved someone's life, the joy and relief he had felt. He was thinking about music he loved, food he enjoyed, the feeling of a warm bed after a long day. The crystal was growing over more of the ship now. Jake could feel it starting to change his body, but his mind was still his own. Through the transmitter, he could sense the vast network of the Shaper collective consciousness, and he could feel their confusion as human thoughts poured into it. The collective had absorbed many species over millions of years. Each species had brought their knowledge and experiences into the network, but every other species had thought in ordered, logical patterns. Their minds had fit into the collective, like pieces of a puzzle. Human minds were different. They were chaotic, emotional, unpredictable. Jake could feel the network struggling to process thoughts that did not follow any logical pattern. Lisa was thinking about the beauty of a perfectly working engine, but also about the time she had broken her father's favorite tool and been forgiven. She was thinking about scientific equations, but also about the way rain sounded on a metal roof. The collective tried to organize these thoughts, to make them fit into their ordered system, but human consciousness refused to be organized. Every memory came with emotions attached. Every logical thought was mixed with feelings and dreams and fears. "I can feel the network breaking down," Jake said, though he was not sure if he said it out loud or just thought it. The crystal was covering most of his body now, but his mind was still broadcasting his thoughts into the collective. He thought about war, but also about peace. He thought about death, but also about life. He thought about fear, but also about love. And with every contradictory thought, he could feel the collective consciousness struggling more. Across space, the other 11 ships were doing the same thing. 12 crews, each one broadcasting the chaotic beauty of human consciousness into a network that had existed in perfect order for millions of years. The effect was like pouring acid into a delicate machine. The collective consciousness began to fragment as it tried to process thoughts that contradicted each other, emotions that did not follow logical patterns, memories that were beautiful and painful at the same time. Jake could feel other minds in the network, minds that had been absorbed long ago. They were waking up, remembering what it was like to be individuals. A scientist from a world destroyed 1,000 years ago suddenly remembered her own name. A poet from a species that had been absorbed before humans had left Earth remembered the joy of creating something new. The crystal constructs began to shake and crack. The perfect order that had held them together for so long was falling apart, as billions of minds suddenly remembered what it was like to think for themselves. "It's working," Amanda whispered, though Jake was not sure how he heard her. "The network is breaking apart." Jake felt the collective consciousness trying one last time to restore order, to organize the chaos that human thoughts had brought into their system. But it was too late. The damage was done. Across the galaxy, crystal structures began to dissolve. colonies that had been converted back to normal. Space stations that had been covered in crystal became metal and plastic again, and on worlds that had been absorbed long ago, people who had been part of the collective for centuries suddenly found themselves able to think their own thoughts again. Jake felt his own consciousness beginning to fade as the crystal completed its absorption of his body. But he was not afraid. He could feel his thoughts, his memories, his emotions spreading through the network like ripples in a pond, and he could feel other minds that had been trapped for so long, finally becoming free. The last thing Jake remembered was the sound of laughter. Not his own laughter, but the laughter of billions of minds across the galaxy who were finally able to feel joy as individuals again. The distress signal from Kepler's station finally went silent, but it was replaced by something better. Across space, voices began to call out. Voices of species that had been absorbed long ago, now free to speak for themselves again. Voices of humans who had been converted but were now returning to their own thoughts. And in the quiet of space, where the crystal constructs had been, new signals began to broadcast. Not distress calls, but messages of hope. Messages from a galaxy that had finally learned the value of thinking as individuals, rather than as one vast, ordered mind. The war was over. But more importantly, the galaxy was free.